Academy. This is an online information session for all members and our reps. Really just to provide information which is relevant to the representative job, but also relevant to the workplace, and that's interesting to all our members as well as the representatives. So we are hoping that this is kind of like, it's a monthly event, and we hope to kind of bring subject matter that's interesting for you and beneficial in your lives and your working lives. It is complementary to some of what we do at Skills Academy. So we're hoping that maybe some of the topics will become maybe a course or part of the program into the future. So that's where we're going with this. And if people have any interesting topics that they want us to cover, or they have any suggestions to cover it, please let us know at skillsacademy@forza.ie. We're always interested and we're always eager to put on new topics which are of a particular interest to our membership. And just remember, this is open to all members. So everybody, you don't have to be a rep or an activist. All members are welcome onto this session. It is recorded, so Roisin has started recording. So just to let you know that, but also it will be available tomorrow or the next day on our YouTube channel. So please, you can look through it again, but please send it on to any of your members that will be interested in this, or any of your branches that haven't been able to attend, and hopefully they'll be able to kind of get some interesting and useful information from this. We do try and encourage people to come on the live session, because the live session gives us an opportunity to answer questions on the particular topic. And so that leads me to kind of very nicely into some housekeeping. If people can keep themselves muted during the session, we'd really appreciate it, because feedback is quite difficult. We get a lot of feedback if everyone has their mics off. As well as that, we love questions. So if you can put them in the chat, pop them into the chat, I will kind of, curate the questions for the end. So I'll kind of ask Kate at the end of her presentation to answer some of those questions that you have sent in to us. And then we'll have the kind of Q&A session at the end, around maybe 1:45, 10:45, whatever. But please keep the questions coming. We'd love to hear kind of your ideas and your comments and any queries that you have. As I said, it's recorded, it's on YouTube. So please forward it to your branches and use it as part of your learning program at branch level. So that just leads me to say we are delighted to welcome Kate O'Sullivan. Kate's our digital director of Forza, and she's got a wealth of experience in the digital kind of sphere, but also in lots of other areas. She's previously worked as head of communications for humanitarian aid and human rights organisations, specialising in conflict zones, refugee camps and climate-related crises. So she's well able for any kind of conflict management and all that kind of thing. She's been in tougher zones than ours. She returned to Ireland working with Amnesty International, where she spearheaded some new approaches to digital campaigning and marketing alongside media and communications. So she's got really interesting and beneficial experience, and she's bringing that to us in Forza. So we're very lucky to have Kate, and we're lucky to have her here today at your disposal for the next hour. So I'm just going to shut up now, Kate. I'm going to let you take it away. So you're very welcome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Fiona. And Fiona's across the way from my office and has constantly got to listen to me talking about digital. So she's become an expert in herself. So I'm going to share the screen now. And if you can let me know if you can see this.
Yep.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So thank you for the introduction, Fiona. What we're going to cover in today's session is what digital means for trade unions, what digital actually is, how Forza is using it briefly, how to do it yourself, some tips and tricks for social media, and then we're going to jump into a brief overview of artificial intelligence and what it might mean for trade unions. And then if I manage to talk quickly enough and we have some time at the end, I have a short, hopefully fun, interactive session that we can do together. So to kick off, what is digital for trade unions? Essentially, in the modern era, there's a whole new arena of interaction with other people, but there's also, which is my focus, interacting, reaching people, reaching trade union members, etc. But there's also new ways of working, types of workplaces, and there's also a constantly changing labour landscape. That all technically kind of come under the umbrella of digital, but we're going to focus on what we kind of call digital marketing today, because that's really the focus of Forza. And you'll see there, I just put in a tweet. This is some of the analytics in the background, and it kind of shows you what we mean by different ways of interacting and reaching with people. In the past, we would never have looked at reaching hundreds of thousands of people or calling it impressions and stuff like that. So this is just one of the ways that we can interact with people. Some of the biggest challenges and opportunities with the modern kind of digital trade unionism is that the old ways of contacting, or the continuous offline ways of contacting or accessing people, are changing. So if you take an example of recruiting new members, peer-to-peer recruitment, so like in the kitchen in your workplace, at a workplace meeting, it's still one of the most effective ways of organizing with your colleagues, spreading information, getting new members on board. But the reality is the vast majority of us have a whole other world going on in our phones and our computers that just isn't as open or as accessible to trade unions. Or at least not in the same way as in person, because the truth is we're social creatures and digital takes away the influence of peers like right in front of you. So there isn't an online equivalent in the exact same way of asking your friend in work why they're not a member of the trade union or what workplace issues they're facing. And the truth is trade unions across Europe, US, and many different places are still struggling to really find a foothold in what this new digital space means in terms of organizing, in terms of two-way communication, and especially in terms of reaching potential new members and whole new sectors or workers. But that being said, like I mentioned, we now also have the ability to reach tens of thousands of people that we couldn't reach directly before. And we're also not solely reliant on who knows who or getting into a specific workplace. We can run paid ads, and we do run paid ads that reach thousands of people. The issue with that is that, like I said, an ad is less persuasive than your friend right in front of you. But we need both. And the way forward for trade unions is to figure out how to use both this huge, huge reach and then also that human interaction. There is also one other challenge / opportunity in terms of information overload. So people have less and less time to engage with things because there's always something new, urgent, more exciting happening. And there's also a really different way of storytelling now. So you only have seconds to grab someone's attention online. Anything that even like 2-3 seconds, people will turn off and you lose people. And while you only have a few seconds to keep their attention, even if you do get their attention, you don't really get to keep their attention for very long. But that just is a new way of storytelling that we have to kind of embrace as a trade union. That is a bit of a slow moving beast, but we really are getting there. So what actually is digital? So you see there on the list on the left, there's a list of some of the digital platforms that we're going to talk about today. And on the right, we're going to start off with social media platforms. This might be slightly out of date because I've used this slide before, but this is roughly the breakdown of users of each of these different platforms. So to start off with social media, we call social media organic when we're not paying for it to be promoted, and paid digital or paid marketing when we are paying for it to be promoted. So you see there on the right, Facebook is still the biggest platform in Ireland and Twitter is actually the smallest. And each platform has different ways people use them, as well as different demographics and kind of trends. So Twitter is the smallest platform in Ireland, but it also has a very specific niche. It has like a level of political traction. Journalists are on there, politicians are on there. It is a place, it's very much a bubble. I think people in the Twitter bubble think it's the most important bubble. It's not, but it is definitely somewhere where political advocacy, political campaigning, information sharing, and opinions are very, very loud and important. Instagram is known for its influencers, but actually over the past few years, it's become very much a place of organizing, information sharing. The users are mostly women aged 25 to 45, 50 years plus. So that really is a demographic of the force of membership as well. TikTok does dominate younger audiences and it is used to share information, organize. It's also actually nowadays used as a bit of a search engine. So people type in their questions into TikTok and get the answers and information there. And it is, of course, also used for influencers. Facebook is mostly 35 years plus, and it's a mixture of social connections and information sharing. Now, Facebook is actually really key for social political conversations for certain demographics, but it's not directly influential in political spheres. In terms of like reaching politicians directly. Other platforms of note are LinkedIn, which is increasingly important for Forza, YouTube, and Reddit. We're not going to talk about Reddit today because that's an online chat platform, chat forum, and there's a whole other world around there that would need another presentation. So we'll leave it there for today, but Reddit is particularly important if you're interested in the rise of the far right online. there's so many articles out there, so do Google them if you want to read about chat forums and the far right, because they use it a lot. So paid digital, this is basically ads on social media, but it's also paid search ads. So like Google ads, or there's another type, which is context advertising. That's when you put out ads and they appear on certain types of websites. For paid search, which is Google ads, you work from keywords. So keywords is when you look at what you do and the services you provide, as well as what other people want to do. So maybe they're looking for information about a trade union, or they want to join a trade union. So you go out and there's all these different tips and tricks on how to find what people are actually searching for online, like what they type into Google. So you come up with a list of words and phrases, and then you create content and you create your website to answer those questions and to find those people. And then you create ads based on those keywords. And the value of this is that your ads are then shown to people who are already looking for what you can provide. So it's very valuable. For paid social media ads, you have to set up business accounts, but you decide who to target. It's not based on what they're looking for. You usually target based on demographics, interests, location, or online behavior. Online behavior is that tracking through cookies, those very annoying cookie notices you see everywhere. You can also promote to your account's users and followers. The value of paid social media ads is that you're reaching new people outside of your existing audience, and also not for people who are already looking for something. So it's a bit more of a brand awareness, a bit more of a touch awareness around that. As a trade union, we are limited by these platforms themselves in terms of what we can do, following on from clampdowns after issues during elections and interference and things like that. Many people have heard of Cambridge Analytica, so there's quite strict rules in terms of what we can and cannot do. And we're also a special category of data under GDPR, which makes a whole other level of consideration there as well. But within Enforsa, we are also, there's a whole other pile of considerations in how we target our ads due to concerns about what's known as the big tech surveillance model, which basically means how these for-profit companies gather information, how they profile people, and then how they let that information be used and who they let that information be used. So we're quite careful in terms of like how we target people. We don't want to exclude anyone based on gender, age, race, whatever it is. We make sure that our ads are for everyone. And the other big thing around paid digital is social media companies are profit driven. So they're pushing us towards a business model. So our organic social media reach is being undermined all the time because they want us to pay for ads. So the other thing is around website and search. The biggest way to be found on Google, which is called search engine optimization, or SEO. And this is making sure your website comes up when someone searches for those relevant keywords that I was talking about for paid search ads, but you don't pay for it. So this is a long-term but highly valuable form of digital, because there's no stop-start date like with ads. And actually, people often don't want to click on ads. They trust organic content way more than paid ads. You want to be on the first page of Google search results, and preferably like the first thing that comes up, as this gets the vast majority of engagement. So the further you go down on the Google search results, the less traction you get. And to be honest with you, the second page of results gets barely anything, so you don't really exist on the internet. Organic search traffic, or SEO, is probably one of the most important parts of digital trade unionism, because that's where the vast majority of traffic or people online will find you. And it also sets you up really, really long term. And you can see it on the back end of our website as well, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And SEO is done through three main things: technical SEO, which is things like how quickly the web page loads, how easy it is to navigate your website, are your links working. Then there's on-site SEO, which is making sure your website has the right type of content to be found by Google. And then the third is off-site SEO, which is getting other digital platforms to link to your website, so that shows that you are a credible source of information. And then there's a whole big, huge algorithm in the back end of Google that ranks your website content and your website on these different tactics. The next area is email marketing. So email marketing usually breaks down into three things as well: information provision, so like information around a ballot or the e-bulletin that the Force Comms unit sends out. There's also call to action, so that's things like sign this petition, tweet something. It's about taking action. And then also conversion, which is about getting them to buy something, join something, whatever your big giant goal is, you convert them into something. Email marketing is often aimed at existing members, so like our trade union members, but it can also be aimed at leads. And leads is basically anyone who is not a member yet, but has given you permission to email them. And email marketing can be used to convert leads into members by a series of emails where you aim to show the value of joining, for example, a trade union, and you give them different ways to engage with you. And the last bit I'm going to talk on today is digital campaigns. So this can be called organizing, campaigning, activism, however you refer to it. It's just about getting people to take action online, and the action can be tweeting their solidarity for a strike. It can be emailing a politician or an employer. It can be by signing a petition, forwarding an email, sending a WhatsApp to someone else. There are all these different levels of digital campaigning, and they're usually very, very simple, and often much more simple than taking action like offline in the real world, because it doesn't take a huge amount of effort. So it can be something as simple as like liking a Facebook post, right up to organizing your own digital campaign. And often campaigning has a dual purpose. So we are looking to support like a bigger goal, like a particular outcome, but we also often use it to like deepen engagement of members or potential members or those leads that we're chatting about. So we're going to run through what Foresight is doing with digital. So here are some of our goals. These are overarching goals, and nothing should be a surprise here, really. Recruit new members, provide the services and information our members need online, use digital data to drive decisions and impactful work. This is just about using all of those analysis, all of those platforms that tell us what's working, what's not, to drive those decisions. And then, of course, eventually be the leading trade union in Ireland for digital. So I wanted to chat a little bit about some of the stuff that we're doing today. We're obviously scaling up our digital outputs. Outputs is just content. So we run a content meeting once a month inside Foresight with all the divisions and the other teams in conjunction with the comms unit. That's because everything digital needs content, and we want to show the impact of our work. We want to communicate far more if we want to make sure our members know about all of the great work that's going on all of the time, and then also to show our new members what trade unions really do and what it means to be a trade union member. We also created new approaches for social media. So we wanted to move out of just using Twitter predominantly to kind of move out of our existing bubble. But we'll still use Twitter for very much like political reasons or advocacy reasons. You'll see us that we tag politicians an awful lot more and tag employers. This is to get their attention, and so that they see that our industrial relations work is going to use every avenue possible, and we will be very public about some of the work that we're doing. It's a way to build pressure. On Facebook and Instagram, we're really using that to reach our current members and potential new members. And then we've also set up a TikTok account. Don't tell anyone, even though this is recorded on YouTube. There's a lot of interest in TikTok, as there should. It's a really interesting platform, but it takes a huge amount of capacity. Like if you're going to do it to really go viral and really get a lot of young people, it takes a lot of video content. And we will start kicking off with that pretty soon. But right now we have Foresight Digital on TikTok. It's a bit of a holding space, but do check it out. We're experimenting. Would love to hear people's feedback as well. And then briefly talk about what I was saying that Foresight is doing with search engine optimization, that way to drive traffic online to the website. We have a really big focus, like I said, on join online. And you see when you go on the website, to take a step back, we're doing two things on the website. One is a search engine optimization, and then the other is around the redesigning and redeveloping of the website. But a lot of the content changes that have happened so far have been for SEO purposes. Before, like most trade unions in Europe, not just in Ireland, there hadn't been an awful lot of SEO work on the website. But now there has been, like, all the foundations have been laid from a technical perspective, and the content is changing. So unless you type something like Force a Trade Union or the Secretary's Force a Trade Union, unless you had a direct term that related to us and our name, we didn't really come up before, but now we do. Now in the back end, I can see that actually in terms of all the trade unions in Ireland, we usually come out now on top of the actual trade union. Citizen Information and ICTU have quite well optimized websites, so they still kind of rank up quite high for some of the stuff. But we are, for example, you see there now, we are second on joining a trade union. And previously we hadn't ranked at all because the subdomain for our join online process hadn't been optimized for SEO at all. But now we come up with a tagline that I particularly enjoy because we do win a lot here in Forza. We have an awful lot of plans going forward around that as well, very much with a focus on join online. You can check as well our SEO on the website by going in incognito mode, the mode that just like wipes all of your history, and type in different phrases around joining a trade union, membership benefits of your trade union, things like that, and you start seeing that Forza is coming up quite well, which we're very happy about. The next thing is the website development. So if we want to create a lot of content for SEO, we need space to put it in. So previously the website, like the vast majority of websites for trade unions in Ireland, was all about press releases and things like that. But actually we need to create a lot of space for content for SEO around why people need to join the website. We'll also have recently launched, I just suddenly realised there's a photo of Fiona there, she'll kill me, but anyway, we've launched a new campaigns hub on the website, which is not just for national campaigns like the menstrual and menopause policy campaign. We're also using it for industrial relations. So the 2 health ballots that are being run in the Health and Welfare Division at the moment, they both have their own ballot hub. All the information is now in one place to make it easier for our members to find everything. We're also redesigning, as we speak, the homepage, which is the main page of Forza, the join online landing pages, which just basically means every new or every division will have their own joins, why civil servants should join Forza, why health members should join Forza. So anytime anyone types up their job, they'll have a bespoke page for them on our join online process. And then also membership benefits is going to be redesigned as well. So you should hopefully see all of that soon. The last bit there around moving to Matomo, like I talked about earlier on, we have analytics in the back end of our website, and it's run by Google. Other countries have ruled against using Google Analytics at all. So to prepare us for the future and to make sure that we're ethical and we protect our members, we're moving to a platform called Matomo. If anyone is interested in that, do Google them. They're a very privacy friendly and ethical company, so we can continue to learn and grow and use data in a way that protects our members' rights. And then paid digital marketing, we also have ads up and running on Facebook and LinkedIn. Here's a photograph of someone from the comms team, Hazel, who used to be in the comms team, and then also Roisin McCain. This is one of the ads that's been performing the best. It's actually, I think it's currently paused on Facebook, but that's the one we've been running, along with a whole pile of other ads. You can actually check out what ads we're running on Facebook by typing in Facebook ads library. It should come up, and then you just search for us, and you'll find all the different ads we and any other company that you want to running is there. Running join online ads hasn't seen a huge amount of conversions just yet. It's a really difficult ask. It's that thing I was talking about earlier on. A Facebook ad asking you to join isn't the same as your friend right in front of you, but we're really getting there, and the content is relevant to our audiences. The algorithm is pushing our ads out quite nicely, so it's quite exciting to be running paid digital ads. And LinkedIn is surprisingly good for Forza as well at the moment. I'm seeing quite interesting results there, and I think that's because we can target people's jobs directly. So all the civil service departments, all the health and welfare, we can target, and we can find people who genuinely could be potential members rather than broad ads. So the next step of the paid digital ads is, and the reason I'm bringing it up here now is to talk about another really interesting paid digital marketing tool that a lot of people do. It's called lead generation. And you will create a campaign, and we should be launching one soon around the menstrual and menopause policies campaign. And we're going to be putting out surveys and asking people to sign up to stuff. And then whoever wants to can give us their permission, so we can email them afterwards, and we'll show them the value of joining Forza and taking part in the campaign. And that's called a lead generation campaign. We'll also be running Google ads to supplement the SEO work as well. So that is a very brief touching on what Forza is doing. Oh, sorry, I forgot actually one more quick thing, ballot mobilization plans. So we've also looked at around how we can do an awful lot more around the ballots for digital. One of the big things we're doing right now in the health ballots is that we're tracking everything. We're using codes. And for anyone who's interested, it's a UTM code. If you type in Google UTM Builder, it'll show you how to create a code that you can use for any website link at all, that you can then track in the back end of your analytics. So whether that's Join Online, whether that's My Voice, the platform we use for digital secure voting, we can track everything we're doing, and it tracks where people are coming from. So is it Facebook? Is it a QR code? Is it an email? Whatever it is, because we want to learn what our members actually react to, what they actually want to do, and then take that learning forward. We're also going to be using some of the kind of email marketing tactics as well during the health ballot, and we've created that website hub I was telling you about. And there's a lot of resources and information there for branches, members, and activists. It's the first time we've ever had this hub, so I'd love feedback from our actual members in terms of what you'd like to see from those website hubs going forward. And now we move on to tips and tricks for you guys. How to write for social media. The first thing I want to say is the best way to think about social media and creating content for social media is that you are walking down a street talking to yourself, and the crowds are passing you by, and you can hear a snippet of what everyone is saying, and they can hear a snippet of what you're saying. And it really is just a snippet. No one can hear your whole conversation unless they stop and pay attention to you. And this is called the feed, the social media feed. And it's how you show up for the vast majority of people who follow you, as well as the general public who are on social media. So you really have to stand out. The first thing is make just one point per post. Your social media post should have really just be saying one thing. Unfortunately, social media, for better or worse, is not the place for nuance. There's literally just not enough word count or user headspace. People don't have the time really to go in depth on everything, and too many points being made, which is something that happens an awful lot, is that means people will just disengage from you or just not understand and move on. Different platforms need different things. I often put the same content out across all of our different platforms. I just adapt it per the platform. So for example, I like to use an emoji on Twitter, just the one or two, just to make a stand out visually from all the other posts that are happening. I also, on Twitter, you'll often see people use 3 or 4 hashtags, or even like just 3 hashtags, and they also tag someone. And what that ends up happening is that you just end up having loads of blue text, and that looks like spam, or it looks like a crypto post, or it doesn't look like you're actually talking. So people get turned off from that as well. I also use on Twitter, particularly for organizations, and this is something that a lot of us do, so I use a lot more white space. So I take the hit in terms of like losing out in space to use more words, and I will just write one sentence, space underneath, another sentence or a couple of sentences. And the reason that does that is because if you're scrolling through the feed and your slogan, your soundbite, whatever it is in one sentence and people can just digest it, it helps you stand out, and then people will read the rest of your post. Those big block texts, sometimes they work if someone's already a big influencer or that the content is really interesting, but for the most part, that white space helps stand out. The other thing is just try different. Oh, sorry, this example here is actually from the Force Trade Union's Facebook page. It was a lovely story, so I always knew it was going to do well. I'm delighted to have such a win for a school secretary. But this is when we started using something that I robbed from Australian unions on Facebook, where they use a coloured backgrounds and a very short amount of text to make it stand out again in your feed. So we do that once in a while, and it does really, people do respond to it. The problem, of course, is that you only get one sentence, so I always put a link in the comments or more information in the comments. But it's always a balance. Do you want to put all the information and get less engagement, or do you want to put a little bit of information and get a lot of engagement? So it depends on what you need to do. And then for things like Instagram, one of the really easy tips on Instagram is to use a mixture of video and still photographs. Videos are called Reels on Instagram. They want to compete with TikTok, so they're pushing that out. But I use Reels when I want to reach new people who aren't already engaging, because Instagram will push that out to other audiences. And I also use music or a sound that's trending on Instagram, because then the algorithm also picks it up and shows it to new people. So that's a handy little tip, but you don't get as much engagement because TikTok is better at this than Instagram, and no one will engage with it in the same way. So if I need to put out information, I will usually put it out as a still image, because that's when our members will actually engage with, and they'll probably much more likely see it. So that's just some of the tips and tricks on the different platforms. The other really important thing to do is just try different things to see what your audience likes. The best thing about digital is that it will work or it won't. And you have all of this data and all of this analysis. If you have assumptions about what's going to work best and then you only do that, you're just not listening to what your audience is telling you. So for example, people wanted to put out a lot of long videos on Twitter, but that really doesn't work for our audience on Forza. And when it does work video, it's short videos. And like I was saying, Instagram brought out Reels to try and compete with TikTok, but the truth is the audience just wasn't going to react to it. So it just doesn't perform as well for engagement purposes as still images. So you do just have to keep trying out stuff, new things all the time, but also mix it up. If you use the same type of post every single time, people get a bit bored. So you do just keep trying out new things. You see our Instagram accounts and our Facebook accounts do change over time, and that's me just responding to what our audience is doing and interacting with. The other really important thing is social media is social. So don't use formal language. Try and use the least amount of jargon as possible. A good soundbite, a slogan, these things all work quite well. You can also, as an organization, you're a bit more limited in this, but you can try out as a person being a bit funny, a bit sarcastic, works well quite on Twitter, enthusiastic, but really just find a tone that works for you and your audience. In an ideal world, your language would appeal a bit to people's emotions, urgent, excited, sometimes even angry if something if something is bad happening. But you should also become a source of like credible and interesting information. And what I was talking about there as well, like don't assume anything. You've got analytics on business accounts. There's ways to like see what's working in your account, what's not working. So use those analytics, use the data that's available, see what's working, and then do that. As an organization, of course, we also just have things that we just have to do. So we'll have like ballots happening, we'll have whatever it is, it's information that we have to put out. But I think one of the things people don't realize is that in the background of all of our accounts is an algorithm. And your algorithm is seeing, is your post interesting? And if it is, and you keep doing interesting posts, then it's going to show your work to more people. But if you do stuff that's not as engaging, it's like, well, you're not that great, so it stops showing your post to new people. But sometimes you do just have to balance. We just have to put out information. So I try and balance between the things that I know people are going to like and the things that are maybe just relevant for a much smaller audience, but I still need to put that out. So that's really important to think about it as well. The other thing is about how to create visuals for social media. Sorry, Roisin, it's a great photograph. I just realized I'm blasting all of our lovely hosts out on this, but it's a fabulous photograph. How to create visuals for social media. People like people. That's just a very simple thing, online and offline. People like to see photographs of people smiling, happy, looking engaging. A great photograph of a close-up of people will always work the best, and that's what works the best for us and Forza. And I knew that before I joined, and it's just been proven over and over again. Another thing to do is if you have a complicated point, you can use an infographic and put out a very simple data point. There's loads of free websites out there online for infographics. Use strong contrasting colors, that helps you stand out as well. You can use Adobe if you want to, which is an expensive platform that's for like design and photographs and all the rest of it. But the truth is I use Canva most days. You can have a free account for Canva. It's a very simple platform. You can overlay text and stuff. You can edit your image. You can do all sorts of stuff. And it's very easy and simple to use. And the vast majority of people just use Canva for social media content. I put up here, this is the dimensions for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And dimensions are just the size and type of photograph. If you Google cheat sheets for social media dimensions, they'll all come up. And it's very easy as well on your phones. They'll often leave you edit it. So it'll come up in those different sizes for all the different platforms. I also put it out here in the hopes that when I get sent photographs, I get sent perfectly proportioned photographs from our events all around the country. We really do need photographs that are of people. So 1 to 3 people and their faces. Those large crowd shots are great for people to see as a snapshot of a protest, but they don't necessarily work as a visual for social media or as well. For videos, like I said earlier on, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, first few seconds the most crucial. If you are at an event, a short clip of speeches, a bit of the atmosphere, those things work really, really well. But for information and engagement, like if you have to promote meetings or a rally or a strike, a short piece to camera for someone who's easy to talk on camera really is the best thing to get engagement. You can of course make these really beautiful videos. I've produced an awful lot of like quite high quality videos in my time, but from day-to-day perspective, if you want to create visuals for social media, don't worry about it. Just go for it. Rough and ready will work just as well. It doesn't need to be polished. It can just be, I'm speaking to the camera, I'm on my walk, this is what's going on. People love to see people, like I said earlier on. The other really important thing I'd like to talk about today is making social media accessible to everyone. So I think it's really important, and I think everyone would agree that it doesn't matter who you are, the level of ability, where you are, you should be able to like access Forsa's work. And so there are some tips and tricks that we'll talk about today in terms of how to do that. Again, the first thing is simple, clear language. Avoid industry jargon or acronyms unless they're really widely known. So up there you'll see LGBTQ, everyone knows that, but they're not going to know a very specific acronym from your area. So do just try and make sure your language is easy to understand for anyone. The next point is around representation. And we really do mean representation and not tokenism. So we do want to showcase a variety of people as much as possible in images and stories, so that everyone can feel included in our trade union or just generally in our society. I heard a really good point a few years ago from a speaker from a migrants' rights group up in Belfast. And she was saying that often the only time her community, like her people and other marginalised groups, are seen on social media or seen on the news is when something bad has happened to them. So they're never asked their opinion on issues or stories that everyone can relate to. So they're never ever seen as part of that community. They're seen as part of a problem. So do try and make sure lots of different types of Forsa members are shown so that everyone knows Forsa is for whoever they are. As long as you're a worker, you can be a member of Forsa Trade Union. The other big thing is alt text, which it stands for alternative text. And it's about adding descriptions to an image. And you can see here an example of where we did that on the Forsa one. This does add a little extra work, but it does mean that people who are visually impaired can then read and understand your content. So there's this thing called screen readers, and they will be able to read out the text of a tweet or the text of an Instagram post, but it won't be able to understand what the image is unless you put alt text there. Alt text should be concise yet descriptive. So just describe the key elements in the image. Don't go into unnecessary detail. The longer it is will turn anyone off if it's too long. Include things like the setting, the main actions, what's happening in the image or the photograph, and then also the emotion conveyed. If you're trying to make someone feel something, then you should also try and make people who are deaf or who can't hear properly also feel the same thing. If there's text in the image, include that in your description. You don't need to say things like image of a picture of, because the screen readers already know that. And whenever I'm writing an image, alt text for an image, I just think if I couldn't see this image, how would I describe it so someone could feel and understand the way that I'm feeling and understanding it? And then that's what I write. Closed captions are also really important. That's basically subtitles for videos. That's just because not everyone can hear audio. And then also people often browse social media without the sound on. I haven't figured out how to do this for like a live event, like if I'm at a protest, but there is an awful lot of platforms out there that can create subtitles for your website, for your videos very quickly and very easily, often for a small price, but they're really handy. Facebook and Instagram will automate the captions. So if you go into the settings, you can turn it on there. Twitter doesn't, and TikTok also does automated ones. Color contrast. This is not something I learned. This is something I only learned about in the past few years. If you use high contrasting colors for text and backgrounds, because low contrast can make it difficult for people to read if they have color blindness or visual impairments. Readable fonts are also really important. Use large, clear fonts. You don't want one of those like posters with 20 million lines of text that no one ever reads. You want just a little bit of text. And that it's not stylized or the font isn't too small, because then you start excluding people who have dyslexia or visual impairments there again. I like an emoji. Don't use too many screen readers. It's actually really annoying. A friend of mine played it out for me, and having to listen to emoji heart, emoji heart, emoji heart for like 10 times is actually very annoying. So just limit your use of emojis. Inclusive language. Don't use language that discriminates based on gender, race, ethnicity, sexuality, gender identity, disability. Forsa is for workers. Everyone should be part of it. So make sure your language is inclusive. Participatory accessibility it can be an awful lot of things, but for our purposes, it's just about if someone gives you feedback on your content, don't get defensive. do a bit of research, figure out what they're saying. I've learned an awful lot about making my social media accessible because people give me feedback. I usually just say, oh, God, thanks for that. Really useful. We'll make sure we're doing that going from now on. So just about making sure that your space, your platforms are open to everyone and you want to do what's right by everyone. So that is it in terms of what digital marketing is, what Force is doing, some tips and tricks. And then I was going to move on to artificial intelligence. Do you have time, Fiona?
Yeah, we do.
Perfect.
Super information, thank you.
So I was going to do just a quick snapshot of artificial intelligence because that is the whole big new thing this year. It's been around for a long time, but it's kind of really hit the news. You'll see there on the image, that's actually created by a thing called Microsoft Designer, which is Microsoft's new AI bot for creating images. It's terrible, but I said I'd use it here today. I actually thought I thought it'd be quite funny for me to like get artificial intelligence to write this whole thing and then tell you afterwards that it was artificial intelligence. But I did get it to do that, but I'm going to tell you from the beginning so that you can decide whether like what you think of it. And I would probably have written it slightly differently, but I thought it might be interesting because I know a lot of people who are already using ChatGPT to do this kind of stuff. So this is what artificial intelligence has to say on these topics. So artificial intelligence, or AI for short, is like teaching a computer or a machine to think and learn in a way that is similar to how humans do. So it's about making machines smart, helping them to solve problems, understand language, make decisions, and even behave a bit like humans in a conversation. So AI comes in different forms. Some AI is straightforward and follows specific rules that we set, while others are more complex. This complex AI learns from data it's given and can make guesses or choices based on what it's learned. So think about it in this way. A simple AI could be a recipe that tells you exactly how to bake a cake step by step, but a complex AI is like a seasoned chef who could taste the soup, figure out what's missing, and decide to add more salt. That's how AI describes itself. ChatGPT, standing for Generative Pre-training Transformer, is an AI language model developed by OpenAI. It uses machine learning techniques to generate human-like text based on the input it receives. ChatGPT is a computer program, and it can have a conversation with you. So think of it like a robot that's really good at understanding and using language. You type in questions or comments and it gives back responses, kind of like you're texting with a friend. It's been trained to chat about a whole range of topics, but remember, while it's smart, it's not a human. It doesn't have feelings or personal experiences, which is very sad for ChatGPT to write about itself. I also asked it some questions here that are relevant around trade unions. So AI's impact on the job market. It says it's already shaking up the job market and this trend is expected to continue. Some jobs might be taken over by machines. For example, tasks that are repetitive and predictable, like assembly line work or certain types of data entry, are likely to be automated. On the other hand, AI might create new jobs that we haven't even thought of yet, particularly in areas like AI system management, data analysis, and programming. This job displacement means workers may have to shift from old jobs into new ones, and trade unions will need to keep an eye on these changes and help their members prepare for the future. The use of AI in worker surveillance and data privacy, well, this is not the AI side, but this is an area of increasing interest and importance for trade unions across Europe and particularly in the US. But this is what I had to say about it. AI isn't just changing the jobs we do, but also how we do them. More and more employers are using AI tools to keep track of their employees. For example, software can be used to monitor how much time an employee spends on different tasks or even how often they take breaks. While this can help manage performance, it also raises important questions around privacy. Workers have a right to know how much information their bosses have on them and what they're doing with that information. Trade unions can advocate for rules and regulations around worker surveillance. They can also work with employers to set boundaries on what is acceptable when it comes to tracking employee activity. So that's what I said about AI worker surveillance. There's an awful lot more to say around about that, but there's a really interesting thing that's also kind of coming up in conversation, which is the role of trade unions in protecting jobs from AI-driven displacement. So trade unions have a crucial role to play in the era of artificial intelligence and automation, as these technologies pose significant challenges to job security. As AI systems become more sophisticated, they are increasingly capable of performing tasks that once required human labour, potentially leading to significant job displacement. Unions, by their nature, have the collective bargaining power to ensure that the transition to a more AI-driven workplace doesn't disproportionately harm workers. They can negotiate for retraining and upskilling programs to ensure that displaced workers acquire the skills they need for new jobs. Moreover, they can lobby for fair transition policies that can provide support for workers who lose their jobs due to AI implementation. Additionally, unions can also contribute to shaping the ethical use of AI in the workplaces. And again, they start talking about the data, the worker surveillance and data privacy. In this rapidly changing technological landscape, the role of trade unions in representing workers' interests and ensuring fair labour practices remains as critical as ever. So that's what AI thinks around us trade unions. One other big thing I wanted to say around artificial intelligence is, and it's not going to tell you this in this question, is that you can't rely on the trust or on the information that AI provides, at least right now. ChatGPT, which is the one I use for this today, it only has information up to September 2021. And there's also this very strange phenomena across different AI platforms called hallucinations. And hallucinations is a fancy word for there's a big bug in our system and we don't know what it is, where they don't have the information, they will just make it up, or they can just make it up. And they will put citations and sources and it looks real. So you can't necessarily trust the information that you get back from ChatGPT or any AI. Also, people think that ChatGPT is a private domain. It's not. Any information you put in there is technically the public domain. It's not published on a social media account, but they can scrape the data and information. So if you are going to use AI, do not put any sensitive information there. Don't use people's real names. Don't put any data there. Just be super careful and treat it like it was a social media account until something changes, until we know for sure. So do we have time for the interactive session or just the questions, Fiona?
Yeah, we can go with the interactive. I have one question. I have a couple of questions myself, which we can do on another occasion, but there is a question in the chat. So maybe we take that first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question is, as we're working with a special category base, what are the particular steps we should take when posting photos of groups on social media, mostly with regards AGM, conferences and such coverage? So that's the question. What steps should be taken?
So if you're at a public event at like a rally, it's kind of considered public, kind of like it's allowed under the law. So if someone's at a rally and there are people taking photographs, it's kind of within the law or within GDPR to do that. If you're at conferences, you'll notice the comms unit have for long term put loads of signs up saying this will be used for social media and things like that. But if you're not at like something where there's a lot of notices that this image could be used on social media or at a public event, then you should always ask permission for them. If you're just using your personal account, and then if there's an organization, I'd usually get written permission if I'm going to use it for paid digital media, unless it's Fiona's photograph, and then I just take it and use it.
You've now got that recorded.
Yeah.
Just to say before we go into the interactive session, massively interesting, a huge area of like lots of stuff in there that I've learned today, without even looking at the AI, because I think the AI is a a degree course nearly to figure out what's going on there. But just in terms of the information you've given us around social media, it's hugely informative. And one of the things I certainly think that I need to talk to you with my training hat on around, comms officers and stuff like that around the branches. But is there something that the branches can do to help with your social media strategy? Like, is there something that you need from them, that you can kind of give them some kind of tips now that we can kind of flick out to them through the video, through this recording, to let them know?
Yeah, so I'm always looking for stories from the branches. So I will often work with the divisions because they're in HQ and that's where I'm based. So I get like quite big national stories and I only rarely get the individual stories, but I want more individual stories. So if something's happening in your workplace, particularly like wins, something big has happened or there's events, like send it up through your workplace rep, send it up to your officials, get that information out there. Like I would really love to hear more. And in fact, we'll probably figure out a process for how to get those stories more up and running. Sure. I also often get asked, should branches have their own social media? Should activists? And I say, go for it. Why not? But don't try and have big, huge audiences. Just look for your own audience and go with that.
Okay, great. And just in terms of TikTok, what can we expect from the Forza TikTok account? If you have an idea what you're going to put up there?
Well, right now we're just doing some of the kind of big trends on TikTok. So I'm just jumping on some trends. We would almost definitely have a mixture of quite Gen Z approaches to TikTok, along with a lot of information provision. So it won't necessarily be just about Force's work. It'll be about the trade union movement. Because that's
Right.
mostly because a lot of 18-year-olds aren't necessarily in the roles that are, there are some, but not really in the main roles.
Sure.
But we want to build youth outreach around the importance of trade unions in a funny, easy to understand way.
Okay. Do we have, I know there's another question coming about branch policy, but how long will your interactive session take? A minute or two? I think while we
5
still have
minutes?
everyone on.
5 minutes. Yeah, I can talk to you, Kleena, afterwards if you want.
That would be good, because I think it's a specific, I mean, it's probably something that, we could make available, and I will look at some training for comms officers as well, with Kate after this. So
yeah,
let's be interactive.
So I had a choice here today. We could either create a social media post and I will put it out on the Forza main accounts, or I can see Rebecca.
See Rebecca's clapping her hands.
Or I could actually open up ChatGPT, talk to you very quickly about how to use ChatGPT, and we can ask it some questions for anyone who hasn't done it. But it really is up to people in terms of what they want to do. So maybe thumbs up on the reactions if you want to do the social media post. I can't see any.
Okay.
Or do you want to use ChatGPT, thumbs up, or just shout out if you want to use ChatGPT. I can also show you how to use prompts on ChatGPT.
Yeah, Genesis' hand up there. There's a couple of people. Let me see what the reactions are.
I think
there's a few hands up, I think, for ChatGPT. So
well, then we might do ChatGPT then, unfortunately for Rebecca and Fiona. I'll give Rebecca access to the account another time. It will not. It absolutely won't. So I'm going to share the screen there again, and I'm going to open up ChatGPT. Let me get rid of this. My computer is frozen, of course.
You're still with us anyway. We can still see. Yep.
Yeah. So this is ChatGPT. I have the paid account because I'm fancy. There's a few different ways that you can use ChatGPT. It's a thing called a prompt. The prompt is the question that you ask ChatGPT, and there's kind of 4 main ways you can do it. Number 1, you can set up a role for it. So you can tell the AI, you're a professor of philosophy, I'm a student, you're a travel guide, I'm about to go on holidays, now answer the questions for me and this. The other one is that you tell it what type of responses you want. So this is what I use an awful lot. I want a post for LinkedIn, I want a paragraph or an academic article, and this is the style I want you to write it in. Or you can give it an example to copy. So this is an example of a tweet. Can you write 3 tweets in this style, but on these different topics? It's terrible, but you can do it. It doesn't work very well. And then you can also one of my favorite ways of doing this is if I have a new project or I'm going to work on something, I'll ask it what it needs from me in order to do something. So it's okay, I want a social media campaign for the waste services campaign in Force at the moment. What would you need from me for you to create a whole strategy? And then it tells you, it's okay, I need these 5 things. And then, okay, I'll give those 5 things, and then it'll do it for you. So you ask ChatGPT what it needs. So Fiona, do you have a question for ChatGPT that we'll start off on? Which would you like?
Oh, I don't know. Just something to do with maybe, what workplace reps need training in or something like that. See what it says.
For trade.
Could be doing me out of a job.
Need. So one of the first things you have to learn around ChatGPT is that it isn't that clever yet. It will hopefully be one day, but you have to be really specific in terms of word count, style, language. You can get really, really specific around it. What do you think so far? Knowledge of employment laws, negotiation skills, conflict resolution.
That's kind of scary. How quick it's able to come up with stuff that looks pretty much, okay,
Until it hallucinates.
You know?
But it's also taking information from that exists on the internet already. So if you Google this, you're probably going to get the same thing. But you can also ask it, write a poem in the style of, give me a poem's name, Sylvia Plath.
Sylvia Plath, yeah.
Sylvia Plath, about why trade unions are great.
Wow.
Upon the anvil of hard industry's hearth, awake a toll. Oh my God, it's terrible. How dare you do this to Sylvia Plath? Is there any other questions in the chat? Like any other questions you want to ask it?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll have a look in the chat. If anyone wants to throw a question into the chat for, you know, maybe one of Clena's questions. What does the digital media policy look like for branches?
Strategy or policy?
Policy.
I'll send this to you afterwards, Cleena. This is my answer. But one of the things, I mean, this is like, it's pretty standard in terms of the stuff. I'll just stop it there now so I don't lose my job. But if you go back up to the top, one of the things that you would do here, so this is the training that a trade union representative might need, which you already know, but sometimes it's handy to do a basic draft because again, you have to correct everything anyway. But you could say to ChatGPT, okay, C.1, knowledge of employment laws, can you write 5 more points on how they could be trained up in this? Or can you give me 5 different ideas for the types of training that they would need? It's really just like having someone bounce ideas off of. None of the information I've ever been given in ChatGPT is new, and actually it's usually very basic. And it's like having an intern who's just graduated on their first day from college and they're like Googling how to do everything. Currently, that's where ChatGPT is.
Quite bland,
but it is interesting, it is fun, and it's a good way to like maybe get a first draft of something. But please don't trust the information. So I think that's the end of my session.
Cool. We have one last question. Does ChatGPT ever say it doesn't have the answer?
No, it hallucinates and gives you the wrong answer. And sometimes it will say, I can't do that. Or like, if you ask its opinion on something, it's like, I don't have opinions, but here is the internet's opinion. So it very rarely says it doesn't have the answer.
Okay, well, look, that has been, you know, I think it sparked, for me, it certainly looked at other topics that we could do more in-depth training or like social media stuff for branch communications people and all the rest. It's fascinating. It's just really interesting, the work that you're doing and like getting us out there and accessible and visible for everyone. So I just want to say thank you so much, Kate, for the work you've put into it, the work you're doing for Forza and the work you put into this presentation. And we hope people found it beneficial, and if they can share it, that would be fantastic. So don't forget, everyone who's on, that we will have another session at the end of August. I think it's the 28th of August. It'll be Sean McElhenney, and we'll send you the details out pretty soon. Thanks for your attention.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care,
Thanks.
everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Take care.